So Nick is he did his undergraduate at UCSD and he did his MBA at UCI. He's a Fortune 40 under 40, a Forbes CMO next, and a 2020 Ad Age Marketer of the Year. He has a ton of accolades under his belt, including working as the VP of Brand Marketing at Hulu. He was the head of brand and culture at Samsung, a VP at marketing at Stance, which is a really cool stock company, digital marketing and social media lead at Taco Bell Corporation, and now the current head of global marketing at TikTok. So we're really, really excited to have you, Nick. Um, for the people here, we're really excited to just like be inspired by you.
Of course. Yeah. So happy to answer any questions and share a bit of my story. Where do you want to start?
Yeah. So the way we want to structure this event is we kind of want to talk about, like your past, how your past experience built up to your present experience, and then talk about your future aspirations.
Okay.
Um,
Great.
So kind of like my first question for you is like, so I know that you majored in history and psychology at UCSD. So it's interesting to see that. So like, how has that contributed to kind of like your journey in marketing?
Yeah. Um, well, quick question. Is the music supposed to stay on in the background?
Oh, oops, that's my bad. No, it's not.
Okay. I was like, that's great. I've never been on a panel that had
Background music.
yeah, that's great. Um, yeah, I would say college is a time where me, like many others, were really just figuring out what we were passionate and excited about. Looking back at like my time at UCSD, I came in as a pre-med biology major, and was pretty determined to become a doctor. And after taking a few classes, recognized that that's not where I was, passionate about. I recognized that it was something that I thought I wanted in terms of like a career. But once I got into what it takes to become a doctor, I was one of the many that essentially like get weeded out of taking on medicine as like a path. After that, I thought that I wanted to get more into law, and I saw that the two most popular majors for people that were going into law school were history and psychology. And to be honest, I was pretty interested in those as subjects. Like I loved learning about psychology and how like people, thought and how they behaved, and then also really liked history, just from like something that I was also personally passionate about. And being able to take that, I ended up taking the LSAT, and honestly, like I do really well with tests. So even though I like got a great score and could have gone to law school, I took the opportunity that summer, before applying, to go and intern at a corporation in their legal department. And within like a month, I knew right away that I couldn't do this long term for a career perspective. So even though I'd already finished the LSAT and was in the midst of like starting to apply to law schools, I quickly changed course and then went over, into like just a normal like business consulting industry role. And the things that I learned from my undergrad were a lot of it is just like work ethic. Like I think the one determining, or the one factor that separates people who are successful in their career versus people who aren't isn't necessarily how smart they are, or the connections they have, or all these other things. It's just like how hard they're willing to work. And that's definitely something that I've seen applied from switching majors and then getting enough credits to become a double major and have a minor in chemistry, and like just being diligent in my graduate studies at UCI. Like all those things are factors that I think led to my success. It was less about the subject that I was in and less about the like actual tangible knowledge that I learned, and more about how to like write a convincing essay and how to like present to bigger groups, and then ultimately like how to train yourself to work hard, because working hard isn't something that people are just born with. Like you have to learn and like figure out a way to wire yourself to work hard consistently. So I think that's another thing that I really picked up during my undergrad years.
That's awesome. So to kind of like digest like kind of what you said, it seemed that like regardless of going like a medical path or a law path, your experience and I would say refining your work ethic and hard work, what became translatable and everything.
Yes, 100%. That's probably like keys to people being successful, and also not trying to like fast track your way to success. I think most most people I know and like younger generations, they tend to think of career as almost like a game. And in this game, they're always trying to find like the hack or like the cheat code to like skip levels and like become a CEO or a CMO or a entrepreneur or a startup founder or any of those things. And there's no real, you know, case of an overnight success. I think what people deem as being an overnight success ends up just being all the hours and years of sweat put into it that people don't see. um, it becomes like what sets the people apart from the ones that succeed versus the ones that don't. So I don't think there's any like real cheat code. And I think if it takes time, it takes patience, it takes a lot of perseverance. And if you just kind of work towards that, you'll eventually succeed in what you want to do.
No, definitely, definitely. And I think that's an interesting point. Because I know a lot of college students. I don't know if the audience agrees with me, but many times, like what I've observed is that like we define our success and even our self worth based on like our GPA, maybe how many clubs we're in, what type of internships we've taken, our research. I know for the business school, like some people define their self worth with like getting like a Deloitte or a EY internship. Um, so my question to you now is, how did you define your like success and self-worth while you were like an undergraduate or graduate school student?
Yeah, I think it's pretty tough for students these days because the bar continues to get raised and it gets continues to like go up higher and higher. Like I'll be honest and say that in high school I was pushing myself. I think I had like a 4.2 GPA or something like that, and I took every AP class. I was also part of the international baccalaureate thing, and I graduated with like AP and IB honors. And then I was in clubs and I played sports and I did all this stuff. And it helps you know how to work hard, but those don't mean much and those don't add up to anything of substance. I'll be honest, my first quarter at UCSD, I jokingly told my parents that like I was an AP student in high school and I became an AP student in college. And I remember my parents were like, "What is it, AP student in college?" And I was like, "Oh, it's academic probation," because my first quarter I got a 1.7 GPA because I was not like as active in like the classroom. And the thing that I realized the most is that the grades don't matter. The thing that really matters is just setting yourself up for future success and like longer term success. So if you're going to go into a field where grades do matter, like management consulting, because you threw out Deloitte and like E&Y, then like yes, then you need to make sure that your GPA like provides you with the stepping stone to be able to land those internships or land those jobs. But if you're looking to do something completely different, then like focus on the things that matter for your field. Like I can tell you in marketing, no one's going to ask you about your GPA in undergrad or your GPA in grad school, but they're going to want to know how you think critically, what you think about when in terms of like driving creative and what it might take to really build a brand. Like those are probably like more relevant. And in that case, like your internships will matter more. So if I had to sacrifice like my GPA for real world experience as an intern at like a reputable brand or an agency, that might be like a reasonable trade-off for the field that I want to get into. But if you're trying to go into like financial institutions, or trying to get into like medical school, then by all means, like the GPAs matter at that point. So I just think that the best advice I was given was focus on the things that will help you achieve what your ultimate goal is. And sometimes it's grades and sometimes it's not.
Right, right. I think that's a really important distinction to make. So based on what you said, like from what I've learned, so some advice I get is like, are people gonna look at your GPA 10 years down or look at your experience? But it is circumstantial as to when your GPA does matter. Like you said, medical school or any law school.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to get more personal with like your like undergraduate graduate school. Kind of like, so like, were you part of like any organizations, or clubs or anything like that?
Yeah. Undergrad, I was in like the Vietnamese Student Association. I think I was part of the Psychology Honor Society. But like, I'll be honest, like we knew that those were just things that we put on our resume and our applications for grad school and other things. So I won't say that I was like as involved. But when I got to grad school at UCI, actually, that's when I took the clubs and the things that I joined more seriously. So there's this thing called Challenge for Charity, which the 9 business schools on the West Coast all take part in. I was co-president for that, and we would compete against UCLA, USC, Stanford, University of Washington, and Pepperdine, and USF, like all these other schools. And it was like a really fun like club to not only be a part of, but also provide like a purpose and impact, because it was obviously raising money for charities. So I thought that was really exciting. Also, as part of Mirage, I think I was part of like the Entertainment and Marketing Association. And then I want to say there was like another club that I wasn't an officer in, but I was just active in. But regardless, like those are the two that probably like stick out the most for me. It was Challenge for Charity and EMA. With Challenge for Charity, there have been numerous connections that I've made from people that weren't only at UCI, but at like other schools. So I remember like the co-presidents of the Stanford chapter and the USC chapter reached out to me. And, every so often we still connect and like just exchange a friendly email to this day, just because we were like, in it at the same time together during our business school days. And we had a shared experience with Challenge for Charity. So even if like you don't go to school with someone, if you notice that there's a commonality within like a club or a thing that you're both officers in, that's a really good way to open up the conversation. I've had numerous people reach out to me after I've obviously become more successful in my career, and they simply just said like, hey, would love to connect with you. I'm currently serving as an officer in Challenge for Charity for, they named whatever school they're from. And I've been able to immediately see that and obviously like accept the opportunity to like to chat and just like catch up with them, because I recognize that that's something that was significant in my, academic life.
That's awesome. So it seems like I'd say legacy, it seems pretty important or meaningful in that sense then.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. So then
Wait, Dan, do you mind if I ask like a quick question like as well, if that's okay?
yeah, go ahead.
I'm pretty sure like all of us in this meeting right now, like we all use TikTok in some way, and like I personally stayed away from TikTok until like the past couple months, because like it's like people dancing on there or stuff like that, but it actually has great like marketing advice, career advice on TikTok as well. But like I noticed that my attention span has gotten way worse because TikTok like clips are so short. So when I go on YouTube and I'm like, man, do I want to sit through this like 10-minute video, So like there's really good aspects of TikTok as well. But personally for you, do you have any advice on like how helping students manage their attention span and just like doing things? Because I think like to pursue a business, like you have to be patient, and just in a day where TikTok is huge, like just all these like really quick things, like it's really hard to stay focused. So like do you have any advice on maybe like that and how it also relates to your career?
Yeah, I feel like maybe you've conflated two different things, but I'll explain and try to see if I can like tease them out. So TikTok aside, like attention spans are getting shorter. Like that's just like the natural behavioral trend that you see. So for example, you called out YouTube's 10-minute videos, but like I don't even know if you guys would even watch this stuff anymore, but like the idea of a sitcom where you're like watching a like 27-minute TV show and there's like commercial breaks in them, like there was a time where that was short, and like an hour-long sitcom would be like normal, and then it became like a half-hour sitcom, and now you're watching YouTube videos at 10 minutes, and now you're watching TikTok videos at less than a minute. Like I don't think we've created anything new. I think just the pace at which people move these days it's just a lot faster than it used to be, because there's so many other things that are potentially occupying your attention, right? So that's just like a natural trend. The second thing is, if you are busier and you are looking to do more, then technically it makes sense to actually watch something less less, that's like less of a commitment. So instead of watching like a 2 hour block or like a 1 hour block, you probably only have time to watch, like 20 minutes worth of stuff. So then the idea would be like in the time that you have, you probably would want it to be like the most meaningful to maximize like the time that you're spending to be entertained. And so like the only thing I could think of is like I still watch YouTube periodically, and I still watch like Hulu and Netflix and all that stuff. So I'm definitely more of an entertainment junkie. But like if I only have 10 minutes and I have to make the conscious decision, am I going to watch a YouTube video or am I going to watch TikTok videos? I tend to lean more towards TikTok videos because in that 10 minutes, I might learn 2 or 3 things that I didn't expect to learn. I might find something that's really funny that I'll laugh out loud at. I might be like actually watching something that's like incredibly emotional and like make me feel like a different range of emotions. Whereas if I watch a 10-minute YouTube video, I might learn how to tie a bow tie, or I might see like one comedy clip from some late night show, or like one fan theory about some new Marvel movie or new Marvel show, but it's like one thing. So in the time that I have, would I rather take on and see more or like see less? And for me, it's just see more. So I don't think we're changing people's like behavior. I think people are busier these days than they ever were before. And in the time that they have, they're just choosing to watch more TikTok videos because it has the range of things that you could do as opposed to like the singularly focused thing that you're trying to get from a YouTube or a Netflix or a Hulu.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think all of us have learned a lot from TikTok, like different tips and tricks that I wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. But definitely making a conscious effort to prioritize your time is key for sure.
But that doesn't change no matter what era we're in, right? Like I think um, whether it's TV or video games or TikTok, if you don't prioritize your time effectively, then it doesn't matter what the thing is that's there to distract you, you will be distracted, right? Like some people obsess over sports or Fortnite or other things. That's still time taken away from the thing that you should be prioritizing. And if again, if 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 TikTok is like overtaking your life, so you're not being productive, like that's probably an issue. But that's also why I don't know if you've ever had this happen. It happens to me a lot. But if I'm watching TikTok videos at night and I exceed, I don't know, what is like an hour or something, a video literally pops up and says, "Hey, you've been scrolling far too long. Like you should probably get some rest and don't worry, all these videos will still be here tomorrow." And then you can just watch it later. So the thing that we've tried to push is just like overall mental health and awareness of not being glued to your like mobile device during that time. So if you're watching TikTok too long, we don't sit there like laughing at each other saying like this is great, we've just like won like and crushed our minutes. We'll literally put up a prompt that tells you like you should stop watching TikTok videos right now. It's like it's way too late, you should get some rest.
That's awesome. So it seems like TikTok is also like very aware and I would say ethical regarding like mental health and awareness.
Yeah, I mean the last thing we want anyone to do is be burned out or be like, okay, I have to like, step away from this for a long time. So it's much better to keep people balanced and ensure that they know, what the appropriate limit is than to have them feel like, oh my gosh, this took over and consumed my whole life. So I think that's the one thing that I've seen that TikTok has done that other apps, other platforms just don't do, because they're really just focused on driving up like individual metrics, whereas we look at things holistically. And we have enough people watching TikTok. We have enough people watching it all the time. Like I'd rather have everyone feel happy about their time on there than not like regretful and just be like, oh my gosh, why did I spend so much time on here? Yeah.
Yeah, that's some of my friends. I'm like, what you're doing? Like, I've been watching TikToks for 2 hours.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
So I would assume that like since you're working with TikTok, it's okay for you to scroll for an hour or two during work.
It is, but I noticed that I don't do it like in 1 or 2 hour like blocks. I'll do it for like a few minutes here and there. Like if I finish a meeting 5 minutes early, like I'm not gonna go watch, Netflix right now. Like that's just not feasible in 5 minutes. So like it's definitely more fun to like jump into TikTok, watch like 3 or 4 videos, and then jump to my next meeting. So like I'll spread it out throughout the day rather than just binge watching. Although at night before bed, that's when I binge watch TikTok videos for sure, which is why I get that message pretty much like 3 times a week, which is ridiculous.
That's awesome. There will be a Q&A at the end. So I would want to ask everyone to like hold your questions, but this is a good segue because I kind of want to talk about more about like what you're doing right now at TikTok. Um, I remember the last time you spoke to one of our classes, you said that I think this when the CEO of TikTok hired you, you told them that like you gotta let me do what I want or else I'll like leave. So I kind of want to expand more on that.
I didn't use those words. That was
Or
definitely not like,
not verbatim, but like
yeah. I think there's like a definitely a level of being confident and like kind of overstepping and not being respectful. So I would always say like you need to maintain that balance of being like respectful in no matter where you're at in life. Also like, I also always talk about being like humble overall, which I think is a great trait for people to be successful. But what I specifically said, just to like paraphrase more
yeah,
accurately,
none of that.
was my long-term goal isn't to become like the CEO or to like take over the CMO job or any of that stuff. Like it's always been to go back to teach in a grad program one day. And because of that ambition that I have, which isn't like career aspiration, but more of a like general aspiration, like the thing that motivates me is learning as much as I can and feeling like I'm having fun while I'm doing the learning. So the way that I approach most of my jobs is I will be here for as long as I'm learning and having fun. If at any point I don't feel like I'm learning or it's not fun, no like issue. Like I'm happy to step away because I'm not trying to become the CMO or the CEO or any of that stuff. I just want to do really amazing work, learn as much as I can, and then take that and then one day go back to a classroom and teach. So there's no like issue. If you don't think I'm doing a good job, you can tell me because I'll then figure out a way to make it better. And if I'm doing a great job, but I'm not learning, I'm going to move on, not because I don't love the job, but because like I need to get more case studies under my belt so that when I go back to teach, I feel like I have the right, I guess experience to then teach a class of future marketers. So that's kind of like how I go into most of my jobs where I just tell them straight up in the beginning, my ambition is to teach one day. So as much as like I can learn, that'll be what really motivates me in this position. So that's kind of how I phrase it. I didn't come in and just say like, if I'm not having fun, I'm out. It was more of like a context on like what my real goal is in life.
Yeah, from listening to you, it's really obvious that you're very genuine in terms of like people can see that you're someone who's a curious, intellectually curious, always trying to learn, and I think that really helps. Kind of like at least for me, like connect with you better because like I can see that like you're someone who's always trying to learn and trying, and that is pretty inspiring, I'd say. Um,
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like you should never get to the point where you feel like you've learned everything, and I've heard all these quotes like, if you're the smartest person in the room, find a new room and all that stuff. And it's true. Cause like, it's only fun to be the smartest person in the room for a minute or two, right? Because like once you have that initial flex, then it's like, so what? Like you don't get anything else out of it. So I'd rather be not the smartest person in the room and continue to like learn and grow. Because ultimately, when I get to the point where I feel like I have enough knowledge, it's not to like sit on top of like the mountaintop and like stare down at everyone. Like I want to then take all that and then go back into a classroom and teach as many people as I can so that they have like a leg up and a head start in the same way that I think a lot of people have helped me in my career. So, I might not be able to donate billions of dollars to charity like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, but if I can go back and teach in a classroom and get a bunch of marketers to think differently and have a legacy on their own where they create like the next best stuff and do things better than I could, I think that'll be pretty fulfilling in the long run.
that's awesome legacy. Um, so did you ever have any experience where someone tried to like flex on you? Um,
I mean, all
or
the time, but like you don't have to worry about it because if it's not something that you care about, it doesn't matter, right? So like people act how they do all the time, and um, you know, everybody in every industry will have a situation where they either get big timed or they inadvertently act sort of big time, and it's sort of the nature of the game overall. But if you don't sweat it and if you don't take it seriously, it really doesn't matter.
And that's awesome. No, yeah. Because I was just thinking like the nature of your job requires you to interact with, I would say, like celebrities or people who are high profile.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that ever like influenced how you act towards them or how you would
Um, no, like honestly, I've met enough celebrities and athletes and musicians and artists in my career that I start to see people just as like people. Like it's not any different. And honestly, the people that I didn't know, like who they were, how famous they were, they're the ones that I hit it off with the most, and people that I would like consider friends today. So I just more so like to think about people for who they are as individuals and not like who they're perceived to be from the masses. Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay, then I have two more questions for you, and then I'm gonna open up to Q&A.
Yeah.
But so we heard about your aspirations for wanting to teach and lead and grow the next generation of marketers and leaders. So I just kind of want to know how you got to that type of mentality, or what really affirmed you to want to do that.
Well, like what wanted me to go back to teach?
Like, why do you want to teach? Why do you want to give back?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like I mean, when I was in grad school, there was a specific class I took, and I forget who it was, but I remember I was pushing back on something they were teaching on because I was like, well, how does that work in real life? And it was clear that everything that they learned about marketing was from like the textbook and an academic approach that was more like theoretical in nature as opposed to being grounded in like experience. And in my mind, I was like, wow, one day I would love to come back and teach and like take my actual experience and prove that like what I did worked and that I could show a class how to do that. And it's sort of been like this like seed that was planted over 10 years ago that just continued to grow and grow and grow. And it kind of helped shape my career where like every place I've been, it was with that mindset of like, how do I learn more so that I could like share that? Because at some point it's not fulfilling to make more money or like do bigger things. Like you want to find something that drives you personally. And for me, it's, the idea of like stepping into a classroom and teaching people stuff that I've learned one day is probably more valuable to me than, getting a gigantic paycheck somewhere down the road in a place that I don't care about as much.
I see. That's awesome. So from that then, so if you were to go back to kind of like your college self, when you're kind of like trying to do some self-discovery, what would be like the biggest advice you'd give to yourself then?
I think the biggest thing and the hurdle that I think most people have a tough time overcoming is like sort of the I'm trying to think of like what's that word, but like I should never have really been afraid of taking any risk or or shooting my shot or like putting it out there. Like I think too often the only thing that holds especially like younger students back is themselves, like not going and doing it. Because like what's the worst thing that could happen? Like someone says no, right? Like it's like who cares? But like I was so caught up in like being rejected that I didn't really realize how meaningless it is to get rejected. And that's not just about work and stuff. That's like life in general, right? Like you never know like where you might be, who you might end up with, or how your life might be if you didn't at least give it a try. And I think constantly having that like nagging impression of like, oh, I don't know if I should do that, or like I don't know if they'll say yes or no. Like I should have never even thought about that or even like paid any attention to it. I should have just gone and tried to do whatever I wanted to do and then see, if it worked out or not.
Is this dating advice too?
This is everything advice. This is dating advice. This is, life advice. This is career advice. It works across the board. And like, if you think about it, an employer, it's kind of like getting into a relationship. Like you're going to date them. You're going to decide if you want to like, make them your boyfriend or girlfriend and work and then stay there for like a few years. And at some point you're going to just decide that it's not the right thing anymore. So whether it's like dating advice or career advice, it's kind of the same. It's just relationships, and relationship advice is pretty universal.
Okay, that kind of inspired me, because I'm thinking about how the things I'm doing right now and how I could, no matter like what the opportunity is, I can use it to kind of like refine my relationship skills, I would say, and being able to nurture that. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm gonna open up to kind of like Q&A, for everyone to have an opportunity to ask Nick. I know Jules been I think that's how you say it, has been eager to ask. So Jules, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear you fine.
Hi. So, I'm curious about TikTok as a company. Do you kind of see TikTok as almost like a Vine 2.0? Um,
Oh, was that the whole question? Do I see it as a Vine 2.0?
Oh, Jules, you're muted.
oh, that was the first question, and then I had some other questions depending on your answer.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and kind of
Sure.
like why if yes, that TikTok is somewhat of the Vine 2.0, how what's the differentiator? How is TikTok, lasting longer? How did they because I know Vine failed because of server costs, I believe, or something like this. Yeah.
Yeah, I can give you some thoughts on that.
Mhm.
Uh, so do you, just out of curiosity, do you use Facebook?
I do.
So is like Facebook the Friendster 2.0?
I don't even know if Friendster was, but yeah, maybe.
Exactly. Exactly. So I use that purposely because Friendster was the first social network amongst friends,
Mhm.
and Facebook didn't create anything new. They just like did what Friendster did way better. Or like MySpace. Do you remember MySpace? Or
I
no?
do, yeah.
Yeah. So like MySpace was basically Facebook, but then
Mhm.
they didn't do it as well. So like being first doesn't matter as much as like doing it more effectively.
Mhm.
And Vine didn't have any real issues. They were bought by Twitter, and Twitter didn't really know what to do with it. And I talked to the founder of Twitter like in the last few months, and we were just kind of like joking about the difference between Vine and TikTok. But
Mhm.
they didn't know how to build Vine within like the Twitter ecosystem. And even when they had the chance to do short form videos, they didn't
Yes.
replace their format with Vine. They kept on using like the Twitter videos that you still see today. And so
Mhm.
they just ended up not having like a proper place for Vine to fit. Now, if I
Mhm.
were to say that like TikTok is completely innovative and all that stuff on its own, like no, there's always going to be something that happened before in every innovation, but it's a matter of like how effectively you bring it to life. And the one thing that I think everyone has talked about is like our algorithm, our community,
Yeah.
and the creators that are on the platform. So even if another platform were to copy us moving forward, it's not going to be a big deal unless we can't maintain our creative edge, our community, and the folks that are like doing amazing stuff on the community. So
Mhm.
again, like you'll see different things copy stuff all the time. Like another even more classic example is, do you use an iPhone?
Yeah, I'm speaking to you on one right now.
Okay, but like the iPhone wasn't the first phone. Like
Sure.
Samsung made the first mobile phone, and like for whatever reason, people love iPhone more. And if you actually break it down even further, the parts that make up your iPhone were
Mhm.
actually mainly produced by Samsung. So like it's not about the quality or it's just about like the perception of the brand. And I think Apple does it better so that we all have
Yeah.
iPhones rather than like Samsung devices. So I wouldn't fault Apple for copying Samsung in the smartphone game. And I wouldn't fault Facebook for drafting off of Friendster and MySpace. I think every platform that emerges takes the learnings of the previous platforms and just
Yeah.
figures out a way to make it better and more valuable to a new set of consumers. So yeah, that's probably how I would look at it more so.
Interesting. And I have one more question about the algorithm, the TikTok algorithm.
Mhm.
So it was it designed on purpose to kind of have new content creators discovered more quickly and more easily so that people kind of adopt and go onto the platform more,
I mean, I can't speak to like the individual principles that were used to craft the algorithm, but like the main thing is it's not a social graph, it's a content graph, which is what you're describing.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's less about I follow these people, so I only see their content, and it's more this content speaks to me because when I see this type of content, I engage or I watch more or I like it or I comment or I share whatever it is I do. So the algorithm will then know, regardless of who Nick follows, he really likes this content. So we're going to serve him more of this content from different creators so he can get exposed to new creative folks that are speaking the same themes that he likes versus it only being who he follows. Because the one thing that's obvious is if you don't follow someone, you never see their content. How would you know if you would like that content or not? Like you don't know what you don't know. So it's much more powerful to have like a content driven algorithm than a social graph. And that's another thing that Vine didn't do effectively. They
Yeah.
still used a social graph. So you can only see the videos from the people that you actually follow versus it being like open to a stream of things that you might like.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course.
So we had 2 questions from chat. The first one was, is that CryptoPunk in your background?
Yeah, who asked that? I got to see who asked that.
I think it was Melon Tusk.
That looks like a fake name. That's like a
It might be a
mix
fake.
of Elon Musk, but with some things mixed around. It is a CryptoPunk. What do you know about CryptoPunks? How much did you pay? I mean, a good amount, I suppose. 10 million? No, I didn't spend $10 million on this. No, but yeah, I think I have like 9 CryptoPunks. This is one of my favorite ones. So I have this, and then a friend of mine made me a hat. It's a guy named. Do you guys know the brand The Hundreds or no?
Hundreds?
Yeah, The Hundreds. So The Hundreds made a purple hat with the CryptoPunk on it. So we're definitely all into CryptoPunks right now. So like me and Bobby and Gary V and Steve Aoki, like we all have punks. Just because we think it's fun right now. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. I think the lowest CryptoPunk is right now is retailing, not retailing, but it's being sold for like 32K. So it's for those of you who don't know, it's an NFT or Nifty.
Yeah, no, it's an NFT, but it's the first NFT ever made. So that's why we all are pretty hyped up on this one. Because from a historical context, if I were to open up my garage and you saw like the first car ever made, that'd be pretty badass. And like we're banking on a future where digital assets are like more valuable than physical ones. So if you could then open up your digital wallet in the future and show off that you have the first NFT ever made, like is that kind of a a flex, so to speak? Like probably. So like Bobby, me, Gary, a bunch of us, we bought the ones with the purple hats because we just like the vibe of them. And then Bobby made 50 hats, and then I think Bobby and I both changed our avatars on Twitter to be like the punks that we own with the purple hat. So, if you've seen Ready Player One, you can kind of see where this is eventually going. But yeah, a lot of us think that this is just fun and interesting at the moment.
That's awesome. That's super hype.
Yeah.
There was another question on chat. So Lexi was asking, did you ever feel like you were not going where you wanted to? But if you did know where you wanted to go, what made you stay on that type of path, even if you didn't know if your future was clear with that path?
Yeah, I think that's a fun question. You never get lost if you never know where you're going to go, right? Like I think that's something that I think is interesting because if I said I wanted to one day go back to teach, like what does it matter what I do if teaching is my end goal? Like it doesn't actually matter. So I've never felt like I wasn't doing what I wanted to do because every place would be a learning opportunity. Even if I went to a place that failed miserably, that's a great teaching opportunity in a classroom. So for my personal purpose, there's nothing that I've done that made me feel like I was off course or not doing or not staying on the path. Like the only way that I would feel that I was getting distracted was like I've been offered like more money and bigger titles at previous roles in the same industry. So like when I was at Taco Bell, people were offering me to take bigger jobs, bigger titles at other fast food brands. And I think if I would have taken that immediate, like self-gratifying thing, which is like the bigger pay and the bigger title, I would have then felt like I was off course. But I purposely went to a new industry each time I got a new job because I thought that's where the bigger learning opportunity was. It was to like leave food and then go into apparel and then leave apparel, even though I could have gone to like another apparel company. It was then to like leave that and then go to consumer electronics. And then I was offered to go to like other consumer electronics companies, but instead of sticking to that, jumping to entertainment. And then I was offered to go to like an entertainment brand that was a competitor to Hulu. But instead of taking that, I went to TikTok, which is like a platform. So I think the only way I would have felt like I would have stayed off course is if I would have taken the money or the title instead of just doing the harder thing, which is to go to a different industry altogether. So I don't think I've ever been off course, but it's not because of anything other than my like trajectory or my like North Star isn't more success or more notoriety. It's literally just like learning more to go back to teach.
I think that's an awesome anchor then, because that means like no matter where you are, what you do, your anchor for anything is really I'm gonna go back to teach, and I think that's awesome because that means you won't feel like uh I would say like unfulfilled then if you
Yeah.
were, because you already have a higher, I'd say, purpose than just like trying to be like a CMO or CEO or anything like that.
Yeah. I hope so. And that's kind of like what I would, teach my kids and all, and all the people that like, I teach in class in the future. Just figure out what your North Star is and try to stick to that. I think that'll serve you a lot better than chasing compensation or titles. Like those are meaningless in the grand scheme of things.
Awesome. Next person is Simon. And then Vivian, Mark, and then Chalada. So I'm gonna unmute you, Simon, so you can ask your question.
Hey Nick, long time no talk. Glad to see
Hey.
you're still doing well.
Yeah.
The question I had for you was like, as marketers, that we have like a lot of control over, I guess like somewhat of like the brand legacy. So if TikTok was to disappear tomorrow, what is the legacy that you would hope that TikTok would leave on like the marketing world or just like overall, like everything?
Yeah, that's a super fun question. It's something that I'm like working on right now. So I just finished selling a movie to Netflix. It's the remake to She's All That, which is called He's All That, and it features Addison Rae. So Addison's going to be a star, even though she was discovered on TikTok. Like even if TikTok didn't exist, like she would be a star anyways, right? But like you will see her as a TikTok influencer playing a character of a TikTok influencer in the remake of She's All That. And that's going to go on Netflix. And then you're going to have music, like whether it's Roddy Ricch or Olivia Rodrigo or other folks that had a breakout song on TikTok that then became mainstream. So even if TikTok were to go away tomorrow, you're going to see the next time you see an Ocean Spray bottle or you see like feta cheese, you're going to think about TikTok. And I'm going to continue to find ways to bring a moment from the platform out in the real world that at least like makes people recognize that no matter what happens to TikTok in the long run, there was a moment in time where TikTok was the center of culture and the things that were relevant in culture came from TikTok. And we'll continue to build that out for as long as we can. Like I genuinely think there's a lot of runway and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. But if it were to stop tomorrow, it'd still be such a fun experience to be at the center of culture over the last year or so and then be able to talk about that, one day in the future.
Okay, awesome. Next we have Vivian. So I'm gonna meet you.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, earlier I really resonated when you said like you found more peace, I guess, by changing to different industries and learning and then giving back to your community. But like I think when you're going into new industries or doing something that you don't have as much experience in within that industry, it's kind of like you're still taking a risk, right? Like whether you're trying to start your own business, you're also taking a risk. So like I think you have having the confidence to do that is important, but also like what are some ways that you've like kind of helped yourself kind of deal with taking away that feeling of being afraid of taking that risk? Because I think that's like something we all go through, and like it's like when you're going into uncharted territory at times, like even with experience, you know, it's like it makes you feel uncomfortable, but how do you deal with that?
Yeah. I have like, I think it's a psychological issue to a degree where I don't what's the word I'm thinking of? I, I don't know. All the things that you just said, I don't relate to at all. But it's because there's like something wired in me differently where when I see like a crisis or something that seems disastrous or anything that's like super awkward, I actually get more comfortable, if that makes sense, which I know it doesn't make sense for most people, but like here's a really stupid example that's like a physical issue that I have. Um, if I'm on a flight and there's a lot of turbulence, I think most people like freak out or panic. That's when I'm most likely to fall asleep. So like if I'm on a plane and it gets like super turbulent, it's like perfect. Like it just like lets me like go to sleep right away. If I'm in the middle of like a crisis, that's when I feel like most things are like clearer for me. And I can just like cut through all the noise and just like do what I think I need to do. And for whatever reason, crises have always just followed me in my career. So I've never been worried about like kind of the way that you described it is like the confidence to have to go into it thinking that you know what you need to do. I don't always know what I need to do, but I know I can figure it out no matter what happens. So Taco Bell was sued for not having real beef, which is fake, but they were sued for that and people were freaking out and we had to rebrand. And that was like the first crisis that I saw and it was super fun. And then I get to Stance and then their biggest customers go bankrupt. So they had to change their business model. Also super fun. And I get to Samsung and then a month after I joined, phones started catching on fire. And that ended up being super fun. And then I get to Hulu, and then they were acquired by Disney within a couple months. That became really interesting. And I get to TikTok, and then there was like threats of us getting banned, right? So it's like no matter where I go, there's always been like a crazy crisis that everyone else probably would have been like, why is this happening to me? This is so ridiculous. Or like, you know, well, what did I do wrong? I see that as like winning the lottery every single time. So like every time I go to a new company, I'm like, am I going to hit the lottery this time? And sure enough, every time I go to a new company, I hit the lottery again. And as crazy as it is, it becomes like a no lose situation for me. Because if I can figure out a way out, I become like an absolute hero. And if I don't, it's not my fault. Like it's not my fault that phones were catching on fire. Like that's pretty crazy, right? That stuff would happen. So I've never taken a situation and seen like the negative side of it. I've always just been like overly optimistic. And then when things get really chaotic, that's kind of when I feel most comfortable. Now I
Yeah,
agree that's not normal. So like that's why I preface this with like that's probably like a psychological issue.
I think I think what your experience probably you're someone who's entrepreneurial in that sense where
Sure.
like you seek the solutions for the problems and you're comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah. 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 That's all probably true. And I'll put myself in awkward situations just for fun to see what it's like. And it's like, yeah, not an issue for me.
Do you get like a kick out of people's reactions?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. My
That's
my
great.
wife finds it to be the most annoying trait that I have. Because she says like you always like making awkward situations more awkward, but you don't realize the toll that it takes on everyone else because it's actually very uncomfortable for everyone else. But I can just look at you and tell that you're really enjoying it. I'm like, yeah, it's really fun. She's like, yeah, there's something wrong with you. Like that's not normal. So yeah, it happens.
All
But
right.
it might be a weird trait that made me more successful because whenever something awkward happens at work or something, and I don't mean awkward like work environment, I mean like awkward in terms of like something happening with the company. I don't get too caught up in like the issue. I just think like, oh, great, this is a new problem. Like here's how I would go about solving it and then figure out like the way forward because I'm not affected by like the actual issue itself.
That's awesome. That's I can kind of relate in that sense too. Um, okay, our last two is gonna be Mark and Chalada. Um, so first I'm gonna do Mark. So
Hello.
Hey,
Hey, uh, earlier in the presentation, you kind of said how you gave the TikTok person like a stipulation of if you stop learning, you may have to move on. I guess from like also hearing the answer beforehand with a crisis to crisis type of thing, and you hit the lottery there. Is there is there like a system or some kind of systematic thing where you approach a problem in a certain way in general?
oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Um, yeah, I typically try to like dissect the root cause or like the insight at why that thing is happening. So, for example, Samsung phones catch on fire, so people stop buying the phone. I think most people would look at that and say, oh, obviously, if the phones are catching on fire, they're unsafe. You shouldn't buy the phone. That's just logical. But yet people were still buying MacBooks, even though the MacBook batteries were also catching on fire a couple months prior to the Samsung phone situation. So it can't be that reason. So I wouldn't take that at face value, but try to dissect the actual insight. And the insight that I felt we uncovered was the fact that Apple's brand is built, they built this perception that they're innovative, they're disruptive, and they are like, like, I don't know the word is like safe. So even if you find out that like your iPhone has a recall on it, let's say hypothetically, you're gonna probably bank on Apple fixing it, and then you being able to like have it taken care of, and it's not going to impact your life negatively in the long run. And that's because they've built such a strong brand over time that no matter what they do, you're probably going to still be a fan of Apple, right? Same thing with Nike. Like most people like Nike. I could point out all the flaws of Nike and it won't change your mind about whether you like Nike or not. You probably still will like them. I think what we uncovered at Samsung is that they were focused so much on telling the story of their product and not their brand that when they had an issue with their product, everyone ran away because that's the only thing that they had the story that was able to like promote who they were. It was like, we make the best phones. Well, now your phone's catching on fire. So there must be something wrong. So I think trying to dissect the root cause, it's never just like the superficial reason why people don't like something or say they don't like something. It's always like something like heavier. And I think my goal has always been to try to uncover what that thing is and then figure out how to make sure that we brought that learning to life and then carry that forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. We have one last person, Chalada. And then after that, we'll wrap things up real quickly. So Chalada.
Yeah. Hi. So I just want to say that I remember meeting you at a Dean Suit in fall. And I also like Dean Speaker series. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
My question for you today is that I'm looking for an internship and I would love to ask you for some advice. Yeah. About that.
Yeah. Internships are like a really interesting time, I think, because it's the one time where you're going to be applying to different roles, and the more popular the company is, the more likely you're going to be competing against more people for that same role. And the nuance is it's the one time in your life where you're technically going to be almost even with everybody else applying. Because like presumably if you're applying for an internship, it's either going to be like your first or second or even third internship, but you don't have like real work experience yet, especially in that field. So the only way that you can really stand out is by not doing what you think everyone else will be doing when they apply to the same internship. So again, no one's ever going to pick an intern outside of another intern because their GPA was 0.1 lower than the other person. Like that doesn't matter, right? And then no one's going to say like, well, this person has 2 internships. That's an edge because like, again, you don't, as an executive or as like a person at a company, you don't expect much out of an intern because they're there to learn more so than they're there to work. So the traits that more people will be looking at from an intern is how passionate you are about that particular company or field, and what kind of X factor are you going to bring that'll bring some real fun value to the company during your time where you're actually there just to learn. So if it's a different perspective, if it's something completely unexpected, or if it's like the fact that this is like the thing that you think you have an edge on than anyone else because you're so passionate about it, those things will stand out a lot more in an internship application than the school someone goes to, any previous experience they have, or any other factors. So I would definitely try to push you towards that. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you. This is always fun. I love hanging out with students. So thanks, Dan, for inviting me.
Thank you, Nick. You're really inspiring, and just your journey kind of helped everyone here understand like there's not really like one set path to go. As long as you have like that anchor.
Yeah.
So thank you. I want to be respectful to your time because I know it's past 2. But really appreciate you here. And could I get like a round of virtual applause from everyone? For Nick.
Thanks.
Yeah, I also just want to say, I feel like you're also working for a company, but you definitely have an entrepreneurial spirit that I can tell, but like it's rare. So like, everything that you said, it's like psychological. Honestly, it's a talent. So yeah, give yourself a pat on the back for that.
Cool. Thanks. And also I've seen a lot of Asian Americans on this Zoom. Like it's also something that I feel is important because growing up, I was probably like more of the minority, and I think seeing more like Asian Americans go to like amazing schools like UCI and other UCs and all that, and then step up into leadership positions in the workforce, it's pretty inspiring and encouraging. So I'm always here as a resource. You guys can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm happy to like make connections, but given all the stuff that's happened, today and not like literally today, but like in society at large today, there's definitely a need for more people to help and reach down and like bring people up who are, underrepresented. So definitely feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
All right. Bye.
Really appreciate it.